Jet Set Climate Envoy John Kerry has big plans. Oh, not for himself. Not the kinds of plans he might test on the market in a peaceful fashion. These are plans for you. And in this case, he plans to take the term man of steel and turn it into something very troubling, burdensome, and dangerous. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. Sure, thousands of years ago, blacksmiths found that they could make iron more durable by adding carbon to the iron-making process in the furnaces. And sure, I know, steel is kind of silvery in color. It's not really green, but this is a new term that Kerry and his gang are sliding into the vernacular. Proponents claim that green steel is carbon neutral.
We have to make green steel. We're doing that now.
Which is, of course, preposterous because it takes fuel to mine the constituents that go into the metals. But if it's not carbon neutral, well, perhaps green steel might reduce carbon emissions, even if the net release isn't zero? Well, that's a matter of what are considered costs, which means we open the door to fundamental economics. In order to understand the word costs, one has to relinquish his own conceit, something which I don't think John Kerry has been shown that he's willing to do. You have to relinquish your own conceit about telling others what they should value and how. For generations, people in the free market have determined that CO2 emissions don't impose market-worthy costs. They're not seeing provable person-on-person damage claims, and the only way damages can be quantified is through subjective valuation should individuals say they or their property have been harmed by the actions of another person. It's pretty simple. Even if a person or a class of plaintiffs were to try to prove in court that CO2 emissions were causing him or her or them harm, the sad political history of so-called climate science is so corrupted by political forces that major scandals have erupted, showing faulty graphs, secret emails indicating attempts to fudge data, and even climate scientists leaving their universities because the field was so sullied by big government. It's only due to politics that CO2 has been called a cost. And by trying to get his magic green steel, Kerry uses fear-mongering to try to hide real cost considerations. For example, green steel hinges on replacing the heating or electrolytic component of binding carbon with iron, and, well, it works as follows, thanks to the kind folks at macrobusiness.com. Quote, the concept of green steel is to replace the use of coke, and thereby coking coal, as a reducing agent and fuel in the steelmaking process, which is at its heart 2Fe2O3 plus 3C equals 4Fe plus 3CO2. Macrobusiness also notes that this will require the construction of entirely new kinds of plants, new coke supply lines, massive inputs of energy, financial resources drawn from other areas of people's lives, and they note that it's at least a decade away.
We're doing that now.
This is a politically driven, arbitrary imposition and has nothing to do with real cost-benefit analysis. There's no cost-benefit analysis possible because a real market cost of carbon emissions on the other side of it isn't measurable, and damage has never been determined. But of course, the tax-funded Kerry Carnival is ongoing and seemingly ceaseless. In addition to his green steel bloviation, we have his days earlier claim at the 4IV Summit of the Americas, hosted in Los Angeles, that, quote,
we have to embrace this transition, which will, in the end, I guarantee you, be larger, ultimately, than the Industrial Revolution was.
Ah, yes, we. And this following his claim at the University of Southern California that we absolutely don't need to drill for more oil.
And energy security worry is driving a lot of the thoughts now about, oh, we need more drilling of gas. We need more drilling of this. We need to go back to coal. No, we don't. We absolutely don't. And we have to prevent a false narrative from entering into this, or again, pun intended, we are cooked.
According to this multi-decade peddler of false narratives and disproven predictions, we have to prevent false narratives, such as the absolutely crazy, flaky, utterly nonsensical idea that the need for more of the most efficient forms of energy like oil, natural gas, and coal ought to inspire free people to increase the availability and see where supply and demand reach the classic economic equilibrium point that kids in Econ 101 learn in their first stinking week. Remember 2009 when John Kerry said, "We have 5 years before the anthropogenic climate change boogeyman would wipe out all Arctic ice"?
In 5 years, scientists predict we will have the first ice-free Arctic summer.
You know, author, economist, and president emeritus of the Mises Institute, Doug French, has a few things to say about Mr. Kerry's grand plans for our economy. So let's conclude with a nod to Mr. French, who writes, quote, "If reality was beyond his reach before, John Kerry surely lost touch when he married into the Heinz condiment colossus in 1995. He talks as if he were ordering lunch from his harried house staff. Faster, Jeeves! Can't you hurry up and decarbonize already?" All of this service to the country has left Kerry clueless as to physics, not to mention economics. French also notes the observations of Chevron CEO Mike Wirth, about whom MRC-TV's Eric Shiner reported last week. Quote, "Global consumption of petroleum and liquid fuels will accelerate just short of 100 million barrels a day this year, an increase of 2.2 million barrels a day from 2021. Yet Chevron CEO Mike Wirth stresses, quote, there hasn't been a refinery built in this country since the 1970s, end quote. More ominously, he predicts, quote, I personally don't believe that there will be a new petroleum refinery ever built in this country again, end quote. The economics of energy are the same as those for all products and services. Price points set by consumer choices send signals that let providers supply the right amount at the price consumers allow. Too high a price will see consumers move to alternatives, which is what Kerry and Biden want. But they want to do it through force. They want to force us onto batteries and inefficient wind and solar. If only pompous politicians like Kerry would leave us alone, rather than trying to push us and manufacturers of energy and other goods into reducing our carbon footprint. If only they would leave us alone, we could live much better. Their attempts to mandate so-called reduction in demand and carbon use, well, they make you and me the targets. It means higher costs and a forced reduction in your potential to raise your living standards. It means a lower degree of productivity, higher prices, and less innovation in multitudinous areas, including inventions we may never see. It means more expensive heating bills, more difficult times for the elderly, charges that we'll never have imagined before, changes in travel decisions, in food production, decreases in retirement plans. And Kerry, well, he shows no sign of caring what his schemes will do to you. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and take a second or two to open a new tab. Flip over on your phone to Rumble, because Rumble doesn't censor us, and of course they host our videos there. It's terrific. We'll see you on Twitter. We'll see you in the Facebook group for MRC-TV. We'll see you on TikTok and Instagram, and of course, MRCTV.org, MRCTV.org. While you're there, head over to the MRC Store and grab something there to help the Media Research Center and give to a friend or keep for yourself. Kind of tweak some of the lefties out there. And oh, by the way, you can find me, of course, I mentioned this a few times over the past couple months. I'm on Twitter at Gard Goldsmith and on Gab at Gardner Goldsmith. So if you want to communicate with me over there, that works as well. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Keep fighting for freedom. I'm Gardner Goldsmith.